making funny noises sometimes,
Oh,
but it's probably fine. Probably just needs
probably.
to be cleaned out and looked into and stuff. But
A,
who's got
com-
time for
a,
that?
well, a can of compressed air will do wonders.
Yeah, maybe I can go to Costco.
Yeah. Could be that your fans, because your fans are normally what ends up dying first. Could just be a
Yeah,
fan. So,
yeah, maybe.
I don't know.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, how's the hard hat?
I'm not very happy about this. It's a bump cap.
Which is
And
just
and anytime we work on one of these machines, right,
yeah.
we have to wear a hard hat now.
Oh,
And I'm the
you have
only
a bump
person
cap?
who works on these machines.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Until your apprentice comes back.
I'm gonna stab him. I'm gonna punch him right in the fucking face. My
Mm.
thing is, like, okay, so he had one clear path to go around the unit, and he chose the
Yeah.
more congested path where he had to like hobble through it.
Yeah.
And then he hits his head on the door, right? And somebody else saw it and they said, that really, you didn't hit it that hard. And he's complaining about being dizzy. And it's like, how soft is your skull? You know what I'm saying? And then
Yeah.
he's like, "Oh, I'm fine." And then all of a sudden it's, "Oh, I'm dizzy and I'm sick and I keep throwing up." And it's like, but at work, it was like he was joking about it, right? And
Yeah.
trying to act like he was real tough. And then as soon as like he gets on workman's comp, it's, "Oh, this is horrible. I'm having a terrible time." And it's like, "Yeah, okay, fucker. Just preach it up, why don't you?" So,
Meanwhile, when he comes back, he's going to be complaining that he has to wear a hard hat.
he's gonna stay the fuck away from me, and that's what's gonna happen there.
Well, luckily, your coworker, he's our future.
He
He's going
is
to
idiot.
procreate, and he's
Yeah.
going himself. Just himself is going to procreate and get us onto the right track where human beings need to be.
Yeah. He's probably gonna spawn the next president sponsored by Mountain Dew.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
like that movie wasn't Mountain Dew, but it was like I couldn't tell if it was like if they were trying to do like a Mountain Dew ripoff or if it was like an actual like Gatorade.
Oh, Brondo. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
Gatorade. It's got
Yeah.
electrolytes.
Yeah.
Did you know it has electrolytes?
Yeah.
It's what plants crave.
Yeah. And by the way, we're talking about the movie Idiocracy, which was what I was assigned to watch, so we could talk about that today.
Yeah. A terrible assignment, right? And with that, welcome to Ethica America, where we talk about the gradual downfall of civilization. But I think this is mostly brought on by poor workmanship Simpson Western whores,
Yeah,
more than anything
exactly.
else. Yeah.
Yep.
So,
Good thing TikTok's around. I'm glad
yeah.
that TikTok wasn't around during that movie because social media would have been super prevalent in that.
Yeah. I don't even remember when that movie came out. I want to say it was like,
2005.
yeah, that sounds about right.
Yep. You
So,
can tell by like the language too and how
yeah.
the language that they used.
Yeah.
And nowadays, if that movie came out now, they probably would have used a different language because
Yeah.
it was definitely language of the times, which kind of has its own discussion to talk about.
Yeah.
But for those of you that don't know, Idiocracy is about a man basically sent forward in time 500 years, and everyone is super dumb. The premise of the movie is smart people didn't procreate because they were, I don't know why. I guess they just didn't. They were waiting for the right time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't do it in this economy.
Yeah. Which, fair. And then the dumb people, they just but they followed like they did a study on two people or two couples, and then the one guy in the couple kept cheating on the wife, and then
Yeah,
just kept
Cletus.
procreating. And then the other couple, they were like, no, we can't right now, and then eventually they became too old to procreate, and then she froze her embryos and just was waiting for the right guy to come around then.
Yeah. Well, the guy, the story is that that guy died masturbating in the shower from a heart attack.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So yeah,
So,
the
but she got her
couple
eggs
with the
froze,
study,
so fingers
yeah,
crossed.
yeah, and then the main character of the story was working for the military, and he was assigned a project to go forward in time a year, but you know things happen, and then a year becomes 500 years, and
Yeah.
the world's a much different place what he's used to. I think
Yeah.
the average IQ was like 50 in the future.
Yeah, I don't remember. So, all I
I
know is
don't
that
think they
it
ever.
was the great garbage avalanche that woke him up
Yeah, yeah,
because it's
because they didn't know what to do with garbage anymore, so they just piled it up on top.
yeah, yeah. Also, I like how Maya Rudolph's making money off of guys, like, just, because she used to be a hooker, right?
Yeah,
And, she's just making money off of guys by saying, like, "Oh, yeah, another $20 now," and that guy's like, "Ooh, $20, Imma get you so good later," and it's like,
yep,
she just keeps getting 20 bucks off of him repeatedly
yep,
without actually, you know, doing her job.
yeah.
So what sort
It
of,
was an interesting movie.
yeah, I know. I was honestly surprised you hadn't seen it. I mean, I know I've talked about it before, but
Yeah,
but,
I don't know.
um,
I guess I just never got around to it, but yeah,
yeah. Did you enjoy it?
it was good. I
Yeah,
liked it. It
yeah.
was. Um, I feel like some parts of it in the movie were still accurate, but like we would just have to use different terms of it now. So I think there is some merit in procreating. I think I did read a study where IQ was based off genetic, but it depends on how the child is still nourished and
Nurtured, I think, is the word that you're looking for. Well, I mean, nourished probably helps too. I mean, you don't want a
yeah,
kid to be excuse me, you don't want a kid to be starving, like, you know, for
you
days.
gotta nourish the education within.
Yeah, that's nurture. So, I like to
And
starve my kids and then set them loose in the forest to see if they'll, like, find something good to eat.
sure,
So, yeah,
it's probably a good way to
but
do it.
it's the best way to do it. Like, my
And
kids are
is
natural born hunters. So my daughter came back with a squirrel once, so I'm not
oh wow,
yeah, I don't know if she was quick enough to catch the squirrel or if the squirrel was already dead, but she came up to me and she put it in my hands. She's like, "Daddy, food." And I'm like, "Oh, okay. Well, they're just rats with cuter outfits." So, but, you know, good job.
and then you just fried it up in the air fryer and good to go.
Well, we like to use lard in this house, so we, deep fryer, but same
Oh, okay.
concept. Yeah, you
Yeah,
can't spray lard, and lard's what gives you all that really good flavor.
it's true. It's true.
I don't actually set my kids in the woods like that, so I'm even afraid to take them fishing around a lake because I'm afraid one of them might get curious and fall in.
Yep. Teach a person
Yeah.
to fish, and they fall in
Yeah.
the water. Teach them to swim, and they'll learn from their fishing. I don't know.
I mean, they can both swim, so
Oh, okay.
yeah. So, I mean, they get a little bit freaked out when they don't, have, like, something to hold on to, but they can both
Right.
swim pretty well, really, for their age. I mean, they're only 2 and 3, so
I did find it weird that there were no kids in the movie.
I thought there was
Like,
one.
yeah, I don't remember them being like a huge emphasis on selling kids around the area.
Well,
Um,
Carl's Jr. when she's banging on the, thing.
oh yeah, and then they showed at the end of the movie where everyone had kids. So
Yeah.
I meant
You're
like in the future, in the 500 years gaps. I don't really recall seeing a lot of kids.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe they took care of that issue. I don't know how
Yeah,
they would have. They couldn't even.
get their thermometers right.
Yeah.
Did you like the part, by the way, where the kid is he's like putting blocks into one of those kids' toys, right?
Yeah.
And he's trying to shove the square block into the circle hole, and then he's like he sees Luke Wilson looking over at him, and he's like guarding it like it's some big secret.
Yeah.
Not cheating off
Yeah.
me.
I did find the IQ test amusing.
Oh my god. Yeah. So, yeah. But what other similarities or maybe what other paths
I
there
felt like healthcare was. I mean, we have better healthcare, but like just how no one could afford it was pretty on point.
yeah. Yeah. Well, I
Um,
mean, that's why he ended up going to jail. Well, that and because why come you not have no tattoo?
oh yeah, the tattoo is interesting.
Yeah.
Um,
Why come you have no tattoo?
I'm still waiting for tattoos to become a real thing, just so you could
Y-
like have a barcode,
Barcode
scan it
scan
when you go
somebody?
to government buildings, and be like, "Oh, here you are. Here's your sticker for your license plate and updated license." Just
Yeah.
barcoding everything, but
Yeah.
um,
I mean, it kind of makes sense, but I think that they would do an RFID chip instead.
yeah, something like
J-
that.
Well, the thing about an RFID chip is you could have scanners set at like, we'll just say Walmart
Yeah,
or whatever, right? You go through, it scans that RFID chip, and now
mhm,
all of a sudden, like, you know who's in your store, and you can advertise more directly to them. So, because a
yeah,
lot of these technologies, they seem to, they really seem to take off from um, starting with marketing, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So Google as an example, how does Google make money? Google makes most of its money off of ad revenue, right? Because you're
right.
paying 75 bucks a click or you're paying 5 cents a click depending on, what profession you're in and what you're trying to sell, right?
Hmm.
And when you think about it, it's kind of perfect because it used to be that like you'd put an ad in newspapers, you put an ad on the TV, come down to Bob's Bargain Alternator Rewind. Bob's Bargain Alternator Rewind, where the fish and chips is hot and you get your alternator rewound,
Yeah.
or Big Yui's Barbecue and Foot Massage. So, where I forget. It's Jones Barbecue and Foot Massage. That's what it is. It's a fake YouTube video.
Oh, okay. Because there was a big Yui's barbecue.
Yeah, I know, and that's what I thought of, right? But that was right next to where you used to work.
Yeah.
So, but anyhow, so uh, you think about it, right? And like digital ads offers you better targeting, right? Because you can
Hmm.
still go by location. You can still not only go by location, but you can find people who are specifically into what you're looking for, right? So, I mean,
Right.
maybe you're selling Pokemon cards on the internet and it doesn't matter as far as location goes, and you're just looking for people to fill that niche. Maybe you're a landscaping company locally who doesn't do online sales, So, but the idea of having an RFID chip is that's just another thing that marketers could track. So that way they can try to get conversions, which is just a sale basically, but there's a conversion funnel. Um,
And it
yeah,
also speeds up. So the way that would probably be introduced would be to speed up government things. So you can get through the airport faster. You don't have to stay in the BMV for as long. Security
yeah,
things. Everyone knows, like, okay, yes, this person is now in the building.
right,
If you don't have a scan, then you go through another thing for security purposes. I mean,
sure,
I could see that being a thing. I could see that our government isn't set up for it.
No, our government's too disorganized. But once again, you're going back to like, oh, it makes it more convenient for this or that. I mean, think about cell phones, right? So Google
Yeah, I mean,
creates an operating system for, 50% of the market or whatever, and they open source it and they give you some choices when you set up your phone. Um, but they're not doing that out of the kindness of their heart. Like, you could build your own cell phone and use their firmware if you really wanted
yeah.
to. They're not making it open source out of the kindness of their heart. They're doing that so that way it got widespread adoption.
Right,
Um,
and we're already being tracked anyway. I mean, our phones are listening to us. They already know when our who's ever on our network is Googling something, we're gonna get targeted ads on it also. I mean,
right.
it's already there. It's just not as, like, in your face prevalent because people don't know how to, like, m for the most part, turn off those settings on their phone,
Yeah,
and they
yeah.
don't
And
know
I
it's
mean, and even if you do turn those settings off on your phone, you don't know if they're being turned off. Now, I'm not saying this is some sort of grand conspiracy because it's not necessarily, right? Um, but it's just one of those things to think about. Like, the government's constantly tracking you, and they're outsourcing a lot of this tracking to companies like Google or Facebook or, pretty much anything. I
Yeah, I
mean, they're
mean
talking about tattoos, but like I said, those chips that they put in dogs, like
mhm,
that's more, you're more likely to get, how do I want to put it? That would be more likely to get widespread adoption, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
right,
Uh,
yeah. I mean, I could think of, like, parents that are super protective wanting to chip their kid just in case they get lost in the supermarket.
right, but the only thing that, well, the thing about that is that, like, you have to be pretty close to get a reading off of those RFID chips, and
Yeah,
the only time that RFID chips really work, um, when with, like, your dog, right, is when your dog
mhm,
is lost, and then it just gives
yeah,
you another avenue to chase down, I guess is what I'm trying
yeah.
to say.
Have
So,
you ever seen, like, pictures of people's, when they lose, like, their one of their AirPods, and they look to see where it is on their phone, and it's in, like, Brazil because they're in the airport?
yeah, I've seen things like that, and I've also seen things where people show up at random people's houses, and they're like, "You have my iPhone inside. Why did you steal my iPhone?" When in reality, they probably just, saw an iPhone that was sitting there for a while and picked it up
Yeah,
because why not?
yeah, I mean,
So, but
I
people
I
get
went
really nasty in those videos.
we went Amanda and I went to Target once, and we got a cart, and there was just a phone sitting there. I'm like, "Oh, look at this new phone," and Amanda's like, "No, we're turning it in," and I'm like, "Oh, I don't get a
Mm,
new phone now."
total bummer.
I know.
Yeah. But back to what you're saying about tracking, like, my daughter
Yeah,
started preschool earlier in the year, right? And she had to go through a third party, transportation system to get her to and from school, right? It's something
yeah,
that's government contracted, so, but the
like an
big,
Uber,
yeah, kinda, but
call an Uber.
it's a transportation company that's specifically meant for, like, taking kids back and forth to school, right?
Mhm,
At least
like a
that's how it
bus.
is in the yeah, that's how it is in the mornings and in the afternoons, right? But other things that they do is they, contract with certain, like, we'll just say, like, nursing homes, right? More like assisted
Mhm,
living centers, though, to basically work as a, Uber for them, um, but that made me all paranoid, so I put an Apple AirTag in her, backpack. Well,
yeah,
actually, I gave her a watch with an Apple AirTag on it, um, thinking that that would be the ideal approach to this, right? Um, but that only
actually use
works
it.
if there are other Apple products around. No, it's just that the amount of people who were there was no indication transporting her where she was at any given point in time, right?
Mhm,
So, like, that means that the bus driver didn't have an iPhone and nobody else had an iPhone, right? Um, but the flip side of that coin was that I would say, I don't know. It just didn't work super effectively in that instance, which that's to be
I see.
expected because Apple's a proprietary product
Yeah.
and they're not really releasing that information. So it's not like an Android phone is going to go out and do that. Though I will
Yeah.
say that like Android did release an app to tell if there's an Apple ID tag around, so that way you're not getting
Oh, okay.
tracked, right?
Yeah.
But they don't actually respond to Apple's tracking. So I ended up
Yeah.
buying a GPS tracker. I think it's called Tracky. And the app's kind of weird, but it works, right?
Yeah.
It's like somebody developed a website, and then when it came to the mobile integration, they didn't do great. But it, it's more just messy than anything else.
Yeah.
Functions fine.
I know you
Um,
can do like share location on your phone too with someone.
yeah, yeah, yeah. You
I guess
definitely
you could always
can.
do that too,
Yeah.
but just not really old enough for a phone, I guess.
No, not really. So, though I did get her a smartwatch instead
Yeah.
to work as a GPS tracker. I haven't set it up or anything. I don't even know where it is. But the idea there was that this GPS tracker was like $30 a month or something like that, which I was like,
Mhm.
holy fuck, you guys are awful proud of this. Um, but it might have only been $20 a month. But I could get
Still.
a smartwatch activated on an MVNO, which is just basically a carrier that kind of like Mint Mobile, where they don't actually
Mhm.
have any towers, but they contract out the cell service to somebody else, right?
Yeah.
And I could get that and put that in her backpack instead,
Mhm.
um, and track her that way for I think it was like $5 a month or $10 a month.
Yeah.
So, and the app is better and all that stuff. I just haven't done it yet. So,
Yeah. I guess the pros and
so
cons of like I don't actually see a whole lot of cons to putting tracking things on your kids other than there's just like some work some just weird freedom and um like privacy type deal. But
yeah. Well,
I
Tim,
I don't know. I don't think there's anything wrong with it.
no, no. I
I
mean,
think
and the
to a
big
certain
thing,
age, I think like, but I think at that point though, when they do get to a certain age, they at that point they have a phone, and you can always say, hey, share your location with me.
well, yeah, and they make apps. I forget the big one, but they make apps specifically for that, right?
Yeah,
And yeah, when she's old enough to have a phone, that's fine, but
right,
you need to be able to teach her not to. I mean, A, you need some parental settings on it, but B, you need to be able to teach them, don't contact strangers,
right.
if your
There's a whole lot of.
location, yeah.
I mean,
But
Rhea
a
has her
lot of that,
first iPhone.
what?
Rhea has her first iPhone, but we do
Oh,
parental guidance, so she can only use whatever app we lock it onto.
yeah,
And that's only
yeah,
because she can't click off YouTube Kids when she's watching Blue's Clues. So,
right. Well,
and it's
and
also my old phone that
right,
I
yeah,
use for Pokemon Go. It's not actually hers, but
right, yeah. But you get the idea, though.
yeah,
There,
I get
like,
the idea. I do see. I mean, I see a lot of pros to tracking. I think it does get scary when government is in control of it.
so I accidentally called the guy Cletus earlier,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I was just looking up clips. It's Cleavon, which I think is a play on Cleveland.
Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure, but that kind of tracks. So, also, I forgot about the fact that like Cleavon was in a very bad accident, but thanks to a couple of doctors, he was able to regain full reproductive function, and that's why,
Yeah.
yeah. And he started with an IQ of 84, by the way.
Oh, an 84. Okay.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, I think
yeah,
the other couple that was presumably to be smart was like what 148, 154, something like that.
138 and 100 and something. I don't
Yeah.
remember. So,
I don't even know what the average is nowadays.
Yeah. Yeah. So I just learned something funny about that movie,
Mhm.
by the way. So in that movie, at some point, they're wearing Crocs, and the costume designer was like, they just wanted the ugliest, most comfortable shoes, right?
Mhm.
But if you look at people in that movie, a lot of them are wearing Crocs,
Yeah.
and they were like, "This will never become a thing. Like this, we picked this because it's ridiculous." And then Crocs like took off after that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I fucking hate Crocs so
And I
much.
like that. Yeah, I like that the biggest store there was Costco, which I mean,
Welcome to
it's
Costco. I love you.
20 years. Yeah, and Costco still is pretty big. So it's just
Yeah.
a matter of time. I mean, it would have been
Yeah.
better if it was called Amazon, but
Mm, but still, like, I mean, back at that time, like, I mean,
yeah.
you know, they're not getting every detail right. Don't get me wrong.
Right, yeah. I don't even know if Amazon was, like, even on the radar at that point, but Costco
I have
was, so
no
good on
idea.
them, and Costco still is
Yeah, yeah.
big,
So,
so
yeah, but they acted like it was just massive.
mhm.
So, yeah. So,
Yeah, it takes 3 hours to get from one end to the other walking. Yep,
yeah.
good times.
Also, my favorite quote in that entire movie, right? Though I do tend to say, your shit's fucked up and you're mostly retarded. So like hit the button and scan your tattoo. I say that a lot. But my favorite quote in that entire thing is when he finally gets to the time machine in the end, and they're like, and then the US had a bigger threat called the Nazis, but then the UN was created and they unnazified the world. It was like,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah,
it's just something stupid, man. So,
yeah. I'm
but
glad the time machine wasn't a real thing.
yeah, it was, I don't know. It's funny though. That movie's entirely funny. But do you remember how President Camacho, he's either sponsored by Mountain Dew or Taco Bell? I can't remember who.
Uh, yeah,
I think it was President Camacho, middle name Mountain Dew. Give
yeah,
me a
I
sec,
don't
I'll
remember,
Google it.
but, I know that, like, half the population was employed by the Gatorade factory, and when they switched to water the crops, that plummeted to 0.
Yeah, it was because of the salts in the soil that, like,
Yeah,
yeah. Dwayne Elizondo Mountain Dew Herbert Camacho is his name.
yeah, and
Oh,
every time they
God.
said, "Brought to you by Carl Jr.'s," everyone got, like, money.
Mhm. Yeah.
Just
Would
walking
you like to
through.
get Starbucks? We don't have time for a hand job, Joe.
Yep. Everything
Oh,
was basically just, like, a way for them to spend money on sex
yeah, pretty
and work,
much.
and
Yeah.
that's it. I mean, it
Yeah.
was just, like, the basic ways to just entertain people, and it's just
Yeah.
how society was.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I forgot that the one guy's name was Beef Supreme. And then you have Upgrade and Frito. Forgot about that.
But
Uh,
Upgrade was, the name that was
of the
like in
pimp. Yeah.
2005.
Yeah, yeah. But I love that, like, he's like, so I infiltrated this gang of pimps and
Yeah. Yeah, at the beginning of the
uh
movie.
yeah, that just cracks me the fuck up.
Yeah.
Uh but when you think about the similarities between now and that movie's obviously an extreme exaggeration on
Oh,
things,
yeah, for sure.
but there are some truths there. Like as an example, Dwayne Elizondo, Mountain Dew, Herbert Camacho promoting um, certain things, certain products in that movie, and Donald Trump promoting Goya beans while in the White
Right.
House. Also, his weird friend, that My Pillow guy, who shut down a bunch of his factories and made masks
Yeah. I forget his
um,
name. It's
during
just My Pillow
COVID.
guy.
Well, he's just creepy, dude. Like, you want the picture of a pedophile, like, you just Google the My Pillow guy and you got it. Like, Like, and then he started selling some cure for COVID over the internet that was like actually harmful for people, if I remember right. Or maybe it
I
was,
think
yeah.
pretty sure he got sued.
Yeah, oh, he definitely got sued. If Alex Jones got sued, he got sued. So, that's just the problem with spreading widespread misinformation there, like, we could all be on the same side because, like, I got Republican friends, I got Democratic friends, and I fall somewhere in the middle where I just don't trust any politician except for maybe Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren, which
Yeah.
but, like, Elizabeth Warren's cool as shit. I actually really like her. So, and I mean, there are cool politicians on the right too. I mean, most of them are more like, what's her name? Marjorie Taylor Greene, right?
Is
Or,
she cool?
uh, no, she is not. So,
It's psycho
and what's
crazy.
her name? Yeah, or Lauren Bobart, I think is her name, right?
Yeah.
Who people I think only voted her into the House because she's hot, right? But I mean, that said, there are chiller right wing characters in the Senate too.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, they all just seem to band together on one side or the other and just like, you
Yeah.
know what I'm saying?
I do think it's easier for the right to band together under an agenda rather than the left.
Yeah. I mean, you're probably right there.
I think there's too many centrists on the left to band together all for everything. But
Yeah.
also like everyone on their own stock and trade. So it's hard for people to be like, you know what, maybe we shouldn't forgive the student loan debt because my husband owns a bank and that'd be really bad for him.
Well, the thing about that is that, like, I am all about people going after their personal interests because, like,
Yeah.
as you're going through life, you're going to have your own struggles. Everybody I know struggles for money. So I get that. And I get self interest being um, important as far as goals are concerned. But when you have such a divisive set of political figures who are just on TV arguing with each other all the time, you kind of wonder how anything gets done.
You
Though,
know how like
admittedly, oh, go ahead.
you have arguments with your friends in like the break room? That's just
Yeah,
Senate, but like they just have more power.
yeah,
That's it.
that's fair. Well, I am kind of a little bit shocked by the Ohio government right now, by the way, and I'm shocked in actually a really good way. Um, So you got a House full of Republicans and a Senate full of Republicans, right? They both have
Mhm.
the majority there. And Mike DeWine's constantly bitching right now about how weed is legal, but they have no way to like get weed in Ohio. And he wants to facilitate that. And the Senate wants to facilitate that, but they want to like add a bunch of rules to it, right?
Mhm.
But a bill has to go through the House first. And the House is like, Ah, you know, this is the will of the voters. So, like, let's just take our time and do it right instead of like rushing something in the office, because this next 6 months, that don't really matter so much. They voted for home grow, so why are we trying to get rid of home grow? This is the will of the voters. So let's just, you know, leave it to the voters is basically what the House is saying. And they're stalling intentionally because if they don't do anything, then it just gets enacted. And then they can make certain rules to some degree. But once it's enacted, it's harder for anybody to change it. And they're like, people voted for this bill because it specifically included the home grow option. And it was that most of that tax revenue went to drug rehabilitation, which you look at places like Lodi, you look at places like Dayton, you look at places like Warren, the opioid epidemic is like hitting those places pretty hard. So having some sort of government assistance available for a lot of those guys, like I know when because I've been around a few drug addicts, and there was always a waiting list for them to get the help that they needed. And the idea there, I think, is mostly that one, the system is flooded with people who are just, addicted to opioids. So that's problem one. But the other thing is that like if you're really looking to get clean, then you've existed this long. A few extra weeks isn't gonna hurt you. But there aren't really enough programs out there. There's not enough funding out there for those people to get the help that they need. And a lot of that really comes down to mental health. So you have these people who maybe they're depressed, maybe they're anxious, maybe they're ADHD, and they try a drug and it mostly fixes that, but it has this severe side effect that, like, I mean, think about drinking, right? How many alcoholics do you know that,
Um.
and they drink just to forget, or they drink
Oh,
because they're the
I don't
party
know that many.
guy? Yeah. I've known quite a few of those too, and a lot
Mm,
of those are law enforcement officers or people in the nursing or medical fields because they see some shit, and you'd like to unsee some of that shit. Like paramedics are especially bad about that, about drinking. I know a lot of drunk paramedics. So, but I also did nursing for God knows how long. So
yeah.
I don't know. But anyhow, so my point is that like the Senate and the governor are given this big push right now to try to get something done, but they want to like change everything about the law. And the only reason that law passed is because of the specific verbiage. Because like 4 years ago, we had something similar
Mhm.
pass, right? But and they tried to cock block this law the entire way through, and it didn't work. So finally, the House is like, "This is the will of the people, dude. Like, obviously we'll make some modifications, but we're not going to go to the extremes that you want them to be because you just don't like weed, and you're, you know,
Right.
I don't know. And I'd much rather have a pothead around than a drunk. Drunks get mean. Potheads, they don't give no fucks.
No.
Biden really needs to make that legal, but he won't because Biden's just a shill for somebody else. I don't even think that he has any sort of like mental capacity to pass any real bill or make any real decision. He's like, what, 78 at this point? And Trump's no
Mm,
better.
no. I think a lot of issues come down to reelection and not wanting to offend the people that do want to get that are voting for them because the left is different than the right. The right will vote whoever is whoever is on the right, they're just going to vote for them. But the left, it's a little different. You can kind of sway people away from voting, Democrat to vote for red just because of like, a couple of things that aren't icky, that are icky in their opinion, like abortion and things like that. More conservative because you can be a left conservative, and if you don't like certain things that the left is talking about, then you'll just vote for the left, and or no,
Right.
you'll just vote for a more conservative person then
Why? Yeah.
because you could be a conservative Democrat.
Sure. Yeah.
It's
And the weird thing is,
yeah,
oh, go ahead.
it's just like these like one topic like or these one topic elections that people vote on really swayed people. So it's kind of hard. I think Biden is doing his best. I think he could do better, but I think he's also terrified of like we don't have anyone
The right.
that's a good matchup against the right. Like who
Yeah.
who do we have?
But,
I mean, AOC, I guess.
well,
He's
but
probably not going to run again.
yeah, but the big thing about that, though, is Joe Biden is the compromise that nobody wanted. Like, do you remember the
Yeah.
primaries? when,
Yeah.
like, nobody voted for him in 2 states, and then all of a sudden he just started winning by a landslide, and it's like, "The fuck is going on?" I mean, that almost had to have been, like, some sort of interference because they had the guy that they knew that was gonna do what they wanted him to do, and he's obviously too old to make any sort of real decision, like, he's just as far as, like, a box of rocks versus him, I'd
Yeah.
prefer a box of rocks to be president because at least I know that a box of rocks ain't gonna fuck anything up.
Yeah.
So,
I
whereas
don't know why,
him, he
like, Elizabeth Warren isn't, like, running again, or, like, I don't know who else would run, though.
well, I mean, the right has their candidate, which is Trump. I really thought it
Yeah.
was gonna be Ron DeSantis this time
I thought
around,
that was
which
gonna be super scary. I did not I do not want him to be president.
but the
Like,
thing
there
is
are
that,
certain
like
people that you're just like, "That looks really scary for them to be president." But the left doesn't
right,
really have anyone. They have Biden, which is like, okay, he's not gonna do anything. He's not gonna
right.
promote Goya beans or try and, like,
I don't know,
separate.
actually, he had a Super Bowl ad where he was talking about apparently, this is a big deal. So he had a Super Bowl ad, right? Where he had a stack of like different chips, and he's like, "I want to talk to you today about shrinkflation." And when I get a bag of chips or a pint of ice cream, I want it to be a pint of ice cream, not
Yeah,
some sort of smaller size. And he's like, and this is a big problem that a lot of Americans are facing. And it's like, okay, so out of all the things that you could have talking about on a Super Bowl ad, you decided shrinkflation and the size of chip bags were ideal for this, not like companies gouging money up top, like,
yeah,
and it just looked like an ad for like Fritos and Oreo and all that stuff because like everything was just so perfectly and pristinely displayed on one side
right.
of the screen, and it's like that's what you wanted to talk about? Not that, like, tires cost minimally like 120 bucks each, and every 2 years we gotta get new tires, right?
Mhm.
And where do the tires go? You know, is
They would get recycled and then sold for the exact same price.
yeah, when we could be producing them much cheaper over here. Like, there's a company called GT Radial, I think, and they're in one of the Carolinas. And they make a good tire.
Yeah,
And you can get them on Amazon for about 75 bucks a piece. And you got to keep in mind when you're having them installed, yeah, there's going to be extra fees involved. But
yeah, I just bought new tires and
I
it was, like, at the end of the day, like, 250 a tire.
yeah, and that's my point. It's not these little I mean, yeah, the little expenses are important. Don't get me
Yeah,
wrong. So the price of food going way up, like, yeah, that's important and we need to deal with that. But that's not the whole picture here. The picture here is that every company is charging way too much for everything since COVID to make up for quote unquote lost profits, but simultaneously, in making up for lost profits, they
yeah,
had record breaking years during COVID. So
yeah,
how exactly did you lose profits?
yeah. It's interesting that I did read a thing about shrinkflation, and I have seen, like, record profits. So they're just raising inflation and also just giving us less product.
Right. And that's my bigger
It's
point.
Yeah, I mean, uh, I do think that some of the writers that the politicians have are questionable. And I don't know why
Yeah.
they choose some things over other things, but maybe, like, because of the Super Bowl, everyone's eating bag of chips and
That would be my guess. But I just found the entire thing to be slightly offensive because, like, I ain't worried about the price of chips or Oreos or ice cream because those aren't things I can afford in my life.
yeah.
So, like,
I did
you're
see,
over here talking about how Doritos are, like, shrinking, and it's like, okay, so what about all my other costs of living? Like, fuck anybody right now who wants to buy a house, you know what I'm saying? Like, you have all these corporations swooping in, buying up properties because everybody needs a place to live, and there are so many legal um, procedures if you're not getting your money, right? To the point that they've kind of like bastardized the system, but it's like where are people supposed to live? Most people don't know how to fix their car. I'm fortunate that like I grew up in a family that like you do everything for yourself. So
Yeah.
anytime I need a repair on my house, anytime that I need something done to a car, I know how to do it and I have the tools to do it. But with all of that said, most people aren't that fortunate. Most people barely know how to change a light bulb. I saw a video of two people trying to jumpstart a car, right? And that would cost you like, I don't know. If you have AAA, I think it's like $200 a year or something like that to have a
Yeah.
AAA truck come out and jumpstart it, right? You can buy a jump starter from Walmart for roughly like 140 or something like that if you're in a
They're not
pinch.
expensive. You can
Yeah,
buy some that just plug
but
it to the USB and then that just charges and you just turn it on,
mm,
start the car.
yeah, but you're not getting a whole lot of current out of that though.
No, but it's
But
enough to start the car and at least like run the car into your aerator.
I don't.
Your-
It depends on how dead your battery is.
right, yeah.
But
I
either.
mean, I've seen them at like drive-in movie theaters. They have them all plugged in. They have like I don't know, like 5 of them for
Oh, I see.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
just
that
like
makes
something like
sense. Yeah,
that. I have one of those for like just like that kind of situation, and they're
yeah,
nice. But I also have like one of those tiny air pumps too, and
yeah,
honestly, it works just fine. It was like $20, which I was really surprised about. So, but
yeah.
yeah, I mean, things like that. I do see your point though.
Well, and like a set of jumper cables is like $30, right?
Yeah,
And they're just having a bitch of a time putting these on, but it's a very simple process. It's a very
it is.
practical experience. Like you put positive on positive, red on positive, black on negative,
Yeah.
and like on the car that you're jumping, you want to put the black on like a ground that isn't
Hmm.
the battery positive or battery ground, right?
Yeah. They have
But
instructions on
none
them. Actually, they tell
that
you what
doesn't
to
surprise me. But they were very, very confused because it sparked, and then it turns out they had the positive going to the negative and the negative going to the positive, and it's like, "How do you fuck that up?" Shouldn't common sense be taught to some degree? Like, it's obviously not being learned right now,
Yeah,
but
I helped my neighbor jump their car because they didn't know how to do it, and I did it for them. And they're also like running a bunch of stuff in their car while we were trying to charge. And I said, turn off everything, give it 5 minutes, and it should be
yeah,
fine. And she kept like trying to start it, and I'm like, just give it a minute. And then we gave it like a couple minutes, and it started right up. And she's like, oh man, I didn't know what
yeah,
to do, but I fixed it.
exactly. That's exactly my point. She
Yeah,
didn't know what to do.
yeah. I don't I don't it's with all the information that people have nowadays, like with YouTube and everything, like, just YouTube
Even
it.
just Chat GPT.
Yeah,
Like, Chat GPT solves a lot of my problems. If I'm unsure how to do something, I mean, a lot of times, yeah, if I know somebody who's done it before, I will contact them.
right.
But I also have such a good handle on things that, like, I'm usually just looking for one sort of nuanced situation.
Yeah,
Now, that said, if like, okay, so I've got a pool table in my garage that has a piece of broken slate on it, right? And it's not a large piece. It's just like a corner, right? And I
yeah,
just want to fix it. And I was like, I've never repaired a pool table. I don't even know what adhesives stick to slate. I don't know if it needs etched like concrete does in order to accept an adhesive. Like, so I just talked to ChatGPT and I'm like, hey, so I
yeah,
got this plan. I'm going to make a mold out of the opposite corner with some silicone and a 3D printed trough. And then I'm going to put it over here. But I have no idea like what to do once I get that mold made. And it's like, nah, don't worry about it, homie. We got you covered. Use epoxy and fiberglass. And I'm like, what type of epoxy? Like, I'm looking at all these ones that have different structural properties and stuff like that. And they're like, well, most of these are going to be more than sufficient. And all you really need to worry about is compression strength, which I kind of thought. But I'm like, okay. So out of all this, like, do I need to worry about Young's modulus? Do I need to worry about tensile strength at all? Like, for lifting it up and down? They're like, "Nah, don't even worry about that. Like, the epoxies that you've described are more than sufficient to hold this pool table together." And it's like,
Oh man.
"Oh, okay." So, through common sense and talking to something that has, like, the entire brain of the internet, I was able to come up with a solution
Yeah.
fairly easily.
It
Why aren't other
it's
people able to do that?
it's pretty remarkable how people don't have that ability. And I mean, just like in the movie, I mean, that's basically what happened also. It's just no one
Well, I keep
knew
thinking
the
back to the guy who swapped thermometers from the anal thermometer to the oral thermometer,
right.
and it's like, that just seems like commonplace anymore, where you go to Starbucks or you go to McDonald's and you're like, "Hey, I want this," and, like, you're actually surprised if you have a special request and they honored it and they did it effectively.
Yeah. I went to Taco Bell last night and I ordered 3 of one item, and in my bag was 4 of not that item. Now either they did not
That's kinda my point.
either they gave me the wrong bag, which I'm just gonna assume they gave me the wrong bag because it's Taco Bell at 10 o'clock at night, and there's, like, a line of 10 cars, and
But
there's
I've worked in
DoorDash.
fast food before, like, how hard is it? How I mean, during
Y
lunch hour, yeah, you're gonna fuck it up a couple
yeah,
times, but how hard is this actually?
but they gotta keep track of all the DoorDash orders and, uh,
It says
Uber
DoorDash right
Eats.
on the sticker, it's like matching the block in that movie. Like, you put the circles with the circles. Well, and, like, I don't know why they don't color code some things. Well, okay. So here's a simple solution, Aaron, right? You got DoorDash orders, you got in-store orders, and you got drive-through orders.
Yeah.
Why not make drive-through order stickers blue, make DoorDash sticker orders red, and
Oh,
make in-store stickers like
be
green or something like that?
because then it's not you're
Maybe
slowing down
even
the
have a
process
color
with
for
all the
like,
colors. If it costs
well,
money.
maybe even have a color for, like, urgency too, but nonetheless, you get my point. Yeah, okay,
Yeah,
so
I
it's a
do.
little bit of extra cost, like, and it doesn't have to be the whole label being blue, the whole
No.
label being orange, just have the label, like,
Mm,
come out
it
and print it like a red star in the corner, or maybe have 3 different label.
they already have words that say, what? M window and the what? Front door or,
Yeah,
dining room?
but they're fucking it up.
They are.
Give me a minute,
Luckily,
I
what
need
they
another beer.
yeah, luckily what Taco Bell gave me was adequate. It was tasty still, so I did not mind.
Yeah. Ugh. But we're
So,
just trending down this, like, did you order a
or
beef supreme perchance?
I ordered, 3 beefy crunchy burritos, and they gave me, like, these chicken and cheese weird taco thing because it wasn't like a soft taco. It was more like a meat, like, with the cheesy gordita crunch has, like, on that outer wrap.
Oh, I see.
I'm
Yeah,
not sure what it's just like a thicker soft taco, basically. I'm not sure what it's called, but it was still good. I
yeah.
mean, I still ate them all.
Chalupa.
Yeah,
It was chalupas.
a chicken and
Um,
cheese
yeah.
chalupa. All right. Well,
But so all of this conversation about just the inability to do anything effectively, right? I'm looking at, and I'm not looking at everybody from this generation, because I have had the experience where th- this younger generation, some of them actually like want to work and they want to do things right. You know, they want to learn how to be a skilled laborer, and they have the drive to do it. So I'm not saying all, but like, come, let's circle back to this apprentice that I have at work currently. So now, you guys kind of caught the cliff notes of this conversation earlier, or maybe we edited that out. I'm not 100% sure, but I'll bring you up to speed. So before we I mean, we were recording, but we weren't super far along, and we usually
I might leave
start.
it in. Who
eh,
knows?
Yeah, but we usually start every little bit of the segment out with just a little bit of small talk because Aaron and I are perfect strangers, and
Yep,
yeah, and I have this stranger danger thing.
I understand.
Um, yeah, well, you're weird. I'm weirder, but you're weird.
I'm weird.
So anyhow, uh, I think we're both kind of odd to be honest with you. So, but you're weird in a good way. You're weird in the ways that I really like.
Oh, okay.
So yeah,
That's what Amanda says too.
yeah.
But you have an apprentice. That's great.
So he sucks dick. So he was given an option in his brain to either walk on one side of a machine where I was working that was super cluttered because I was working over there, or the space that was very clear, uh, able to walk through without any hazards, right? And I wasn't over there at the time. And he chose the former, where he's going to walk through the super cluttered area and then he hit his head on a door. And it's a heavy door in his defense, but he hit his head on the rubber seal right in the middle of his forehead. And then 15 minutes later, he comes over to me. It probably wasn't even 15 minutes later. It was probably 5 minutes later. He comes over to me and he tells me, he's like, I hit my head on your door. And I'm like, well, that's your own dumbass fucking fault. Like, who the fuck is like, oh, there's a door right here. Let me hit my head on it. And
Yeah,
this is before I knew that he had hit his head on the forehead on the rubber seal. And he's like, yeah, well, I'm a little bit dizzy now, but I'm trying to like get through it. And I'm like, no, if you're feeling dizzy, you have to go and see a medical professional like right now, depending on how hard did you hit your head on that door? Oh, well, I'm just trying to tough it up. Well, how hard did you hit your head on that door? Pretty hard. Meanwhile, afterwards, I found out from somebody who witnessed the whole thing that he barely even tapped his head on it. So, but, and then I'm like, okay, well, you need to tell our supervisor about it. So go tell him. And I had a hunch that he wasn't going to.
yeah,
So 10 minutes later, I go up to our supervisor. I'm like, hey, so he hit his head on the door and he's complaining of dizziness. So he obviously needs to like go and be checked out.
yeah.
And it became this whole 2 day ordeal with what to do with that, all because somebody didn't look where they were going. And he even admits that he wasn't looking where he was going. And it's not, like I said, not everybody from this generation is that way, but I'm seeing a lot more of that where you have these people who just they want to do their 9 to 5, but they don't want to put in any actual effort. And anytime that they can get an easy out, because he's off on workman's comp for a week now because the doctor said he had a minor concussion, even though CT scans and MRI scans showed absolutely no damage. They're just taking his word for it and erring on the side of caution, which is, to be expected. But, and like I said, I wouldn't even say most people are this bad, but that's kind of the generation that's coming about where you have these kids who are just they they don't seem to know what's going on and they don't seem to care to learn, and they're either overconfident or underconfident about it, and you don't have anybody who knows how to jumpstart a car. Like I had to help this
Right.
guy change out an air filter box, and it was super simple, and he was afraid he was going to fuck up his car the entire time. And I'm like, nah, pretty easy process.
Yeah.
And he just, like, I could have given you step by step instructions. 1, loosen a clamp. 2, loosen 3 bolts. 3, pop out air filter box. 4, reinstall bolts. Like, it's not a
Yeah.
complicated process, but he made it out to be a very complicated process to the point that I had to help him.
I see like that with older generation too, where uh, but it's more for like technology where people
Well, that is true.
just can't Google something. Like they just don't know how to type in words in Google or how to do like a Google image search or anything like that. So they just, well, there just needs to be like a customer service to just handle people when they don't know how to Google something, which I guess we do have it. And they just, go call their company and be like, hey, what's this thing? Google it for me. And then they can just Google it for you. I don't know how many times I just Google something for customers at my job where I'm just like, this isn't even our product. It's someone else's, but let me Google it for you. I'll give you the model number for you. And then you can just be on your merry way because I don't know if you're going to be able to just even handle it on yourself. You're going to like call a
Right.
plumber, pay like $200, and they're going to Google it for you. I'll just, I'll help you out in this instance.
And they're going to determine that the rubber washer is not installed in the unit,
Yeah.
or that you don't need three of them stacked together.
Yeah. I've had that
No,
do that
you're
before.
absolutely right, and I didn't think about the flip side of that coin because the younger generation, at least they know how to look up the information. They just have no ability how to perform any actual like maintenance
Yeah.
or
Your your
repair.
apprentice is just that
An
simple
idiot.
guy where he's just
I
procreating
think he was.
everyone.
Did you did you ever see Not Another Teen Movie?
No, but
Lem- Well, I'm not gonna make you watch it, but
okay.
I'm gonna send you a clip. Okay,
All right.
just give me a sec.
I I just think like there is an amount of knowledge that people might not be able to use chat GPT because they just don't know how to even come up with the correct answer questions to ask chat GPT. They can't be like, what's the model of this? Or what's this? Because chat GPT will be like, I don't know what you're referring to.
Well, and you might be right. So you're saying the problem is critical thinking skills, and particularly with communication, where they don't know how to describe the word differently than thingamabob.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I just
I feel like this could be pretty easily rectified. Like, I feel like if we had a class on how search engines worked in like fifth grade,
yeah.
right? That and how to follow simple directions, right? Which could just be a cooking class,
Yeah.
right? Like most people who are like, "Oh, I'm a good cook,"
Yeah.
right? They have no clue what the hell they're doing.
I mean,
Like I'm a good cook.
I learned how to cook from HelloFresh, our not
Oh
sponsor.
man, man, go
Uh,
ahead and give them the business, Aaron.
you can use someone else's promo code for HelloFresh and get, I don't know,
Yeah, and get
meals.
16 meals free. Get the free dessert for life. Don't they have a
Yeah.
free breakfast thing for life, right?
I don't know. And then you just wash it all down with G Fuel. I actually tried G Fuel because of a YouTuber.
Oh yeah.
I wanted to see what it's like, and it's actually pretty tasty. So
Oh, is it?
yeah, I kind
Huh.
of like G Fuel now. It's
22 meals free, first box ships free, plus 3 surprise gifts. Use coupon code GRPHF22A. Man, that's a catchy coupon code. Yes, this came off of Groupon, which is why the first initials of this coupon code are GRPHF for HelloFresh 22A. And that'll get you 22 meals free, first box ships free, plus 3 surprise gifts. Oh man, Aaron. Have you used this coupon code before? Because I'm about to.
I haven't, but I just pay full price
Oh,
for HelloFresh now.
oh, yeah. I
Yeah.
think they have something about like you can't use so many coupon codes in like a 12-month period too, or
Eh,
something like that.
sometimes we'll get like free gifts though, like free desserts or something like that, or a free
Oh, I was thinking
premium
like a
meal.
free. I like the idea that you just get free packets of barbecue sauce,
Yeah.
and that's it.
Yeah.
That's your free gift.
Yeah. HelloFresh will have premium meals that have like steak or shrimp or some sort of seafood instead of like or prosciutto or something like that, something fancy. Um
Prosciutto.
yeah, where it's like an extra like $7 for the meal. or
Did you say Proschetti?
yeah,
I
it's like
like Proschetti.
it's like spaghetti, but different.
Proschetti. It's like meat noodles.
Spaghetti,
Yeah,
but it's
it's
pretty
a mix between prosciutto and spaghetti.
prosciutto.
Yeah, but it's just prosciutto noodles.
Oh, okay.
So it's like a fancy ham noodle.
I was thinking of like anime bushido or something. So
I think we pretty much hit on most of the points
there
of this already.
there are a lot of things to this movie where I could touch on to have like just different side things like the whole movie is basically owned by a corporation. Like the whole world is owned by a corporation. Like
Right.
we that's also we're not there yet, but I can totally see we're going towards that direction though. I mean,
Well, yeah. I mean, and that's the whole idea behind capitalism is
yeah,
that you let the free market work for itself. But the reason that capitalism is a failed um, sort of concept, at
yeah,
least, I mean, it's not fully failed. There's nothing inherently wrong with capitalism. It's just the way that we've implemented it.
right.
We we
We
tend to
we like did something bad with it because we have like
yeah,
four banks
well,
that own everything.
right. Well, yeah, Blackstone and I mean, I think it's no, it's BlackRock. I'm sorry. Yeah.
BlackRock. When we start looking for houses, we're gonna have to compete with BlackRock buying them.
I mean, you will. And that's the inherent problem is that it's not a problem with capitalism. It's just that instead of favoring the people, we favor the corporations
Yeah,
because the corporations are able to do more for us or for the government directly. But when you're relying on places like Norfolk Southern to deliver, goods via train, and they spill a bunch of PVC chemical all over the place to the point that you've contaminated like a small town now, or I guess it didn't spill, I guess it caught fire.
right. Yeah,
And then you have repeated train crashes because people didn't perform the proper maintenance, because whether that be because they didn't have the time to perform that maintenance, whether that be the parts didn't arrive. I mean, you're talking about favoring these corporations more than you do the human lives surrounding that.
yeah, and
And that's really where
that's where the line
yeah,
should be. That's where government should step in and take
right.
control, but it just doesn't.
And there's nothing inherently wrong with a large corporation either. There are certain corporations out there that do things certain ethically.
Yeah,
They do it somewhat ethically. Like there's nothing inherently wrong with these things. It's just the way that they've been implemented, and what drives a corporation is just constant greed and appeasing the shareholders and making yourself look so good to the shareholders that you got to do it again. Companies are growing like exponentially right now, whereas like back
yeah,
in the 1960s you wouldn't see nearly that growth. And it's
yeah.
good when a company comes in like to a small town and they employ like 200, 300 people, because people need jobs. Like, I'm not so naive to suggest that like, but typically what happens is they employ people to do those jobs and they want the cheapest cost involved when employing them, and all that makes sense business wise. But
But then you get like your apprentice that walks into walls, and now you all have to wear hard hats or bump caps, so you can bump in the walls and be okay
right.
at first.
Jesus Christ, that kid is dumb as a
But
box of
he's
rocks.
he's gonna bump into
If
a wall harder, break his bump cap, and then you're all gonna have to wear industrial sized hard hats.
when he gets back, I'm wrapping him in bubble wrap. That's already decided. And I'm literally going to wrap him in bubble wrap. That's not a joke. I
I'm glad all
I've
your other
talked to him about what
coworkers are okay with him and are okay with bump caps.
they're not, and they hate him too, and we're just kind of like, you need to be gone, dude. Like, you're a safety hazard. We keep saying you're a safety hazard, and now you maybe hit your head hard enough that you got a concussion, but we all think you're faking it.
Yeah. I think it's
Yeah.
to a certain point you could take care like advantage of a company as long as it's like within your rights. Um, I just had a thing with bereavement, and I couldn't get bereavement because of like me and Amanda aren't married, but we're also not considered a domestic partnership.
Right.
But that all just depends on the state laws and things like that, or
Yeah.
even how the company even wants to define what they think is a domestic partnership. But all companies
Right.
usually go off the bare minimum of whatever the state law is for. If I disobey this, I get fined rather than anything
Yeah,
else.
I get you. Well, and that goes back to what I was saying about how, like, I mean, don't get me wrong, people should be able to do what they want within their own autonomy, right?
Yeah,
Like, you feel unsafe at work, you should be able to make a stop work protocol exist, right?
yeah.
And what that means is that,
Oh,
like,
for sure.
somebody's like in there with a press, and they, everybody's fingers are under it, and they're like, I'm gonna hit the go button. You should damn sure be allowed to jack that guy in the face and get him away from the controls, right?
Yeah,
Like,
you just impale him with a
you
forklift.
yeah, well, whatever. I mean, I think there's probably more reasonable ways to do that,
Oh
but
yeah,
nonetheless, like, the forklift thing, if you're on the forklift and that's your only option, then, I mean, if you're saving 3 people from getting injured versus 1 guy, then I don't know, but I'm a little bit too utilitarian,
yeah.
so,
That's pretty utilitarian of you. What for
yeah.
that one person that you're impaling is the CEO.
I'm just looking for the greater good,
Well,
not for the shareholders' interests. I'm looking how many lives are gonna be affected directly in that
my
situation.
my plant
And
manager.
I'd probably just lay on the horn and beep a lot,
Yeah,
not actually hit them with forks on a forklift.
yeah. My plant manager referred to the lowest entry, the lowest machinist as cattle because they're so easily replaceable.
I mean, there are days where I wish I did something like that. I
Yeah,
can't stand not thinking at a job, though.
yeah. I sometimes miss the factory where I literally did not have to think at all or even
Right,
communicate with people
right.
for this reason because people they just complicate things with you either got to explain to them like they're five or they get offended because you're talking to them like they're five. You just don't know where they are in that spectrum of whether they're five or 35.
You don't know where their base knowledge starts
Yeah,
versus, like,
we need
where it ends.
yeah we need like a tattoo on your forehead of where your base knowledge is.
Hmm. Well, and I mean, like, it's hard to ascertain that sort of thing,
Yeah,
right? Like, you start talking to somebody and, like, they act like they know what they're talking about, but then they're like, how do I use a wrench? Like,
yeah,
you start to get an idea.
yeah.
So,
And you can't judge a fish by the way it climbs a tree. I heard that
that's a
phrase
weird
somewhere.
saying.
It's a weird
Yeah.
it's a weird thing.
Yeah. I did hear a really good quote the other day, right? When it comes to people who you don't necessarily like them, but you don't hate them either, right? And the saying is, we're not enemies. It's not that I don't want you to eat, it's that I want you to eat at a different table than me.
Yeah, makes sense.
We were just talking about good quotes, and it's
Yeah.
my
I
ADD brain.
I was
But
thinking of
that's what I need to tell my apprentice.
yeah. I was thinking about the
So,
phrase when you say to someone I don't like you, which implies that you dislike them, you hate them. But it also just could mean like when you like someone, you have emotional emotions towards them Or you could just
Well,
have like no emotional connection or even thought process to them. I mean, what do you say about that? I don't acknowledge
well,
your existence. That sounds like just long-winded.
it's not that I nothing you, and it's not that I hate you, but I don't like you.
No.
But you're closer to nothing than you are to me liking you.
Yeah, it's just a way of words to communicate your likeness to people.
Well,
I don't
one
like you,
thing that
but
I
I don't
do,
hate you. I guess that's a good thing.
yeah, but usually, well, I'm kind of verbose. So normally, if somebody like, if I just don't like them or I don't hate them,
Hmm.
I usually just, well, in the past, I haven't done it in a while, but I have said, I nothing you.
Yeah,
You literally mean nothing to me, which I think might be worse than hating somebody.
I think so too.
But yeah,
I always thought that
because it,
at least you're putting some thought into them, whether it's negative or positive. But any thought is good thought. No, that's something else.
well, that's based off of a marketing
Yeah,
strategy that any attention is good attention.
yeah,
It's just a
yeah.
matter of how you get to spin it later. It might not be good right now, but at least people are paying attention to you. So you
Exactly,
get brand awareness out of it, whether it's good or bad, but you can fix the good or bad later if people hate you,
it's
is
true.
their thought. But well, most of the time you really can't. So I once went to a concert where they're like, if you hate us, make sure to tell all your friends how much you hate us. So that way they can listen to us and make their own decisions. And it's like, no, if I tell my friends that, that's not how it works. If I tell my friends that a band really sucked, most people aren't going to put themselves through the 3 hours to listen and discern whether or not you suck like you think that's going to work. You're saying that to be edgy. And yeah, that works to some degree, but
Yeah,
in reality, they never became a band outside of Buffalo. I mean, they toured more than I did when I was in a band. Furthest we went, I think, was Erie, but and they came from Buffalo to Cleveland. But when we played in Erie, that was like playing to a bunch of farmers. They didn't care one way or another.
no, they just wanted to have an event to go to so they can procreate with their date and make 90 babies to make the world a better place in 200 years.
Well, that's a good point.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
put it back to the movie.
Aaron, I'm going to ask you while we wrap up this episode, what's your favorite quote from the movie?
I'm trying to think.
I'll start with my most memorable quote. Brought to you by Carl's Jr. Carl's Jr., fuck you. I'm eating.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of the quote that the guy always used, where his lieutenant always told him, like, either it was like either move out of the way, fix the problem, address it, or get out of the way. And he just chose get out of the way. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. Either shit, get off the pot or get out of the way.
It was like I don't remember, but it's the only quote I can think of, and I can't think of it.
Do some idiocracy quote, move out of the way. Lead, follow, or get out of the way.
Yeah, it's it. Lead, follow, or get out of the way. And you always chose get out of the way. That's a
Yeah,
good
when he
one.
says that, you're not supposed to choose get out of the way. It's supposed to embarrass you into leading or at least following.
Yeah.
It does not do that.
He wasn't embarrassed about getting out of the way, though. He just
No.
wanted to have someone else fix the issue, which, it's fair. But, good on
Yeah,
him
I forgot
for
all about that.
fixing the world and growing plants.
Yeah, and all it took was just not using Brondo for everything.
Just so one thing in that movie that made me think of like real arguments now was when the person said, well, there's toilet water in the toilets that they don't grow plants, which is like the exact same argument that I hear all the time of like, well, so and so is happening now and it's not doing it.
Yeah, yeah. Water? Like from the toilet?
Yeah. There's no
Yeah,
plants growing in the toilet, so water's not causing
right.
things to grow.
Also, I love that one of President Camacho's cabinet members was elected from like a basically a lottery,
Yeah.
right? A sweepstakes.
I wish we had that now,
So,
honestly. That'd be kind of
uh,
fun.
that would be kind of fun. I mean, and it seems like a good idea right now because you might get somebody who, actually knows what the fuck they're talking about, or at least somebody
Yeah.
like somewhat smart.
But,
But
according to our statistics in this movie, the majority of people are your apprentice.
I don't know about according to statistics, but that seems to be the type of person that I tend to encounter more and more. And I'm not, I mean, maybe you guys leave your comments on, oh, we don't really
Yeah, we
do
don't have
much social
comments yet.
media right now. Yeah.
Maybe one day I'll
But maybe you guys email us
me
and let us know what you think.
yeah.
So our guy in Massachusetts, maybe you got something
You might
going
be able to
on for
comment on
you.
something if you donate to Patreon.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that'd be great. A couple bucks a month would I don't know, it would show us somebody's listening. Not just you guy in Bama or
Yeah.
you guy in Oregon.
We
Yeah.
did have
We're
I'm
slowly
gonna
like when we started, we had one follower, which I think was a CIA guy in Virginia
we've had
who was just listening in a
yeah,
bot.
we've had, 49 downloads in all times, from all time, and the
Yeah,
last 30 days we've had 4, so
we're growing exponentially, guys.
we had
So,
one download from our random chit chat episode, so we're doing great.
well, we're doing the Lord's work really when you think about it. All right. Well, do you have anything else that you'd like to talk about this episode, Aaron?
I don't think so.
But was Idiocracy a good call to talk about?
Yeah, go check out the movie, audience. See where our world's going.